Monday, and then your homework Monday and Tuesday will be to start to work on it. Monday and Tuesday and part of Wednesday, I will be doing an introduction to the Civil War. Everything I go over will help you with this, and you can use any of the material that I tell you in your project. Okay? If you try to leave this all until the day or before it's due, or even a couple of days before it's due, I will be able to tell. Right? I have had groups that have, not set their class time wisely and have spent 3 days before it's due trying to do everything, and I've gotten basically garbage. Right? I will be able to tell you cannot rush this. You are researching the entire Civil War. You are planning it out with 3 other people, so each group is going to have 4 people. There's 24 of you, so it's nice and evenly. There's no groups that will be bigger or smaller. You do have to work with people from this class only. And like I said, you will be getting most of that time to work on it in class, but it will also be your daily homework. So you should continue at home as well. Okay? So I'm taking away about 2.5 days from you next week, so that way I can introduce it. The following week after that, I'm also going to take away 2 days. One day I'm going to be doing a lesson on Gettysburg, because that tends to be a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. But again, if that's your topic, anything I tell you, you can use. And I will also take a second day for the Emancipation Proclamation, which also tends to be a little bit more complicated. But again, anything that I say, you will be able to use. Right? Questions so far? Okay, so just follow along. Okay, as we go along, if you have a question, raise your hand, and I will answer it. Right? On Monday, I will also show you a lot of examples. Yeah. And I highly suggest taking out a pen or a pencil and writing things down as we go along. Okay? I'm going to use a lot of pointers, explain things a lot, pointing out maybe some of the things I've noticed people have had trouble with in previous years, or just some things that are super important that I want you to make sure you have in the scrapbook. Okay. So you'll be working in a group of 4 to create scrapbooks in the Civil War. There will be various aspects of the war that you will have to cover. It will also be from the perspective of one of the following characters. Okay? There's only a couple of things that you really have to write from their perspective. Your journal entries, for example. Some people do the captions all from their side perspective. You just want to make sure, especially with the title, if you decide to do a Confederate or a Union soldier, you don't want to name your book The War of Northern Aggression. Right? Just make sure it's cohesive. That's all I mean by that. Right? So you're going to pick one of those 4. You have to decide as a group. Okay? You can't have 2 people write a journal entry from a Confederate soldier and another one from a Union soldier. You guys have to pick one of these perspectives and create a character. Okay? Name your character, where does your character live, right? That sort of thing. Okay, so there's little boxes next to all of these, so as you're going through it, especially at the very end, you can check it off to make sure you have all of the requirements. Okay? I highly suggest using the last day in class before it's due to just sit there with your scrapbook as a group and just check off who you have each of these topics. Can't tell you the number of times someone has handed in their scrapbook and a topic has been missing. Right? They get their grade back and they say, but we did this work. So they forgot to either print it out, somebody forgot to put it in, whatever it might be. It's really worthwhile to take some time before it's due to check it off and make sure you have everything. A lot of the main pieces. This is also really getting you to kind of work on a very large group project. Right? Again, it's about 2 weeks. It's a lot of research. You're putting this all together. Okay, so some of the components you have to have: an appropriate title, okay, an introductory page. You can introduce your character. You can talk about how the Civil War began. Whatever you want to do, you just have to introduce your scrapbook. Okay? Illustrations, photos, or artifacts that are appropriate to the time period and in proper historical context. Each item should be accompanied by a short description of that item's relevance or significance. Okay? Every topic needs an image. You will lose a point each time you do not have an image, and trust me, it adds up. So even something that's a little bit more abstract, like the topic war of attrition, you can still find a picture that relates to it, and you have to include it. So essentially what you are going to do for each of these different topics, you are going to have an image, at least one image. And I say at least because sometimes it's easier to explain things with more than one picture. Okay? Basically, the more pictures you have, the less explaining and the less writing you have to do. So it kind of becomes a trade-off. So you need to have an image, a caption, and normally it'll be about a paragraph to describe the battle or to describe whatever's going on. Okay? You can do more of the information as captions. Okay? So like if you're describing a battle, that information can be in a caption. However you want to present the material is fine with me. Okay? But you are not writing a full essay or anything like that. You should never have a page that's just all words. Okay? It's a visual representation of the Civil War. Okay? But of course you still need to explain these different topics. Okay? You're going to focus on the significance, distinguishing characteristics, and general explanation. Okay? So something like women in the Civil War, you would explain generally what they do, but also give some specific examples. And I'll go through each of the topics and tell you guys a little bit more. Okay? A minimum of 2 journal entries per person in each group. Okay? They will cover the Civil War, discuss and refer to major events and people of the era. Okay? The journal entries should correspond to the pages that each person creates. So the reason I tell you at least 2, when I go through, I'm going to check off, okay? Group of 4, there should be 8 of these journal entries. The journal entries can replace a description. So if you, for example, in a journal entry, if you are a Union soldier and you're describing the Battle of Gettysburg, you then don't also need another paragraph to explain it, okay? So you can allow your journal entries to incorporate as much information as you want, and then you have to write less on the side, okay? I had a group last year that literally did every topic as a journal entry, so you have that option too. Some other people rather just write their normal paragraph, have their normal captions, and they still put in their journal entries, but their journal entries then focus maybe more on like emotions or how they were feeling at that certain time. Okay? So it can really be done like either way, and that's also kind of personal. Like if your 2 journal entries for your topics, if you want to just do it like emotion and then write everything out separate, you can do it like that. Yes.
Would there be like a separate section for the journal entries, or are they like mixed in?
They're just mixed in. Okay. So I did forget something there, and I want you guys to add it in. Okay. You need to put your initials on the bottom of each page. Okay. So. See like this one?
Where do you get a book like this?
Their initials are on the bottom. So like a ton of people work on this page, so they all put all of their initials, right? If people in your group have the same initials, just be aware of that. Okay. You do not have to make it like this. You don't need a giant scrapbook. I've gotten tons that are like, I'll show you these more too. Something like this. Okay, it's just more of a folder. It has plenty that look like this, that are just binders. Okay, I've also had people that like use ribbon and tie it together, and that doesn't matter to me. However you want to do it is fine. Okay, so a closing page, a conclusion, an epilogue, something like that. Okay, a works cited, okay, MLA format. You cannot use Wikipedia as your main source. I will also tell you Wikipedia is really not, especially for extensive research like this, it's really not the best resource, especially for battles. It tends to make it more confusing than using like the History Channel. They really describe all the battles really well. There's some topics in here that your textbook does really well, and I will tell you that as you go along too. I'll also post some web sites that you can use. There's one that's like an interactive, like infographic that is also really great, and it goes through the whole Civil War. So I'll be posting some of those websites also on my own website. Okay, so the group is responsible to submit an electronic copy of the captions and written content on Turnitin. Okay, you may do this as a group or individually. Do not double submit your work. Okay, so however you guys decide to do it in your group. So Well, if you're all working on the same Google Doc, one person would just take that Google Doc and put it on Turnitin. You don't have to make it look nice. Formatting doesn't matter. You can have one that's in size 60 font and the next line is in size 6. Try not to go that small. It just, the computer just needs to be able to read it to make sure that there's no plagiarism. Okay, so don't feel like you have to reformat it or anything like that. Now, if everybody works on everything separately, then you would each submit it onto Turnitin. Okay, and that's also due on the same day as your scrum. There's a group summary sheet that will be filled out, and then you have to copy it into your own Google Drive. I will show you more of that next week. It's basically a chart of all of this information, so that way when we go over it, because we're going to cover all this material after your staff studies do, you have basically some information written down, and you can add or take away from it. You're not doing anything extra for that besides copying and pasting your information into that chart. Okay? You will then need to copy it into your own Google Drive, so that way you can edit it while we work on it in class going over the material. Okay? I don't know if I mentioned this, but you do not have a test on the Civil War. Okay, this counts as your test basically. It's a 100-point project. You will, however, see questions on it under finance. And at the very end, a copy of the rubric, which is the back page, you're just going to slip it in with your scrapbook when it's due at the end. Okay. Alright, other. The length of the finished product will vary as many of the required topics overlap and should be included on the same page. You are not required to have a separate page for each required topic, but all of the topics need to be included somewhere. And the physical size of the scrapbook is up to you. There's also some topics where you will need more than one page, right? So a super important battle, like the Battle of Gettysburg, you're going to have probably at least 2 pages for that. Okay? You will also be graded on creativity and organization. Okay? You can organize it in the exact list that I gave you. Okay? You can figure out another way of organizing it, but I shouldn't be reading about the end of the Civil War before you talk about the beginning. Okay? So like all the extra stuff, like women in the Civil War, all of that, you can integrate wherever you want to, but there has to be some sort of order, especially for battles. Okay? You can organize the battles from the Western Front and the Eastern Front, which we'll talk about, but don't just throw all the pages in there. Okay? You will lose points for that. Okay, next point is very important. This is a group project and you will receive a group grade. Okay? If there is a problem with a group member not doing their work, I need to know as soon as possible and before the project is handed in. Okay? After the project is handed in, the way I grade is final. You may not ask for a separate grade after it's handed in. Okay? So what I mean by that is there's some topics that overlap. So if you were talking about the Battle of Antietam, and you don't mention the Emancipation Proclamation, but somebody else does later on, your group still gets points for that. So if you come to me after I've already graded it, and you say, well, I did really awesome on all my topics, and so-and-so did really horrible, can I have a separate grade? I can't do that. Because most likely you got extra points thrown in there because your topic was mentioned somewhere else, or certain topics are easier than others. Okay? So your grade is a group. Okay? Now that being said, if a group member is really not doing their work, they're not completing what they're supposed to, as long as you talk to me ahead of time, I can separate your rubric. Okay? You notice the rubric is out of 235 points. I divide it, get a letter grade, and the letter grade goes in as a 100-point project. Right? So if you and everybody else in your group does what you're supposed to, but one person doesn't do anything, and you wind up with only 200 points, I could do it out of that